Hi everyone, welcome to Craft Club. I'm Luna.
Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome to our online series. We're going to be showing you some great interactive craft projects that everyone can do for all skill levels and with a special focus on things that you can find around the house.
Today I'm going to be showing you how to make monster toys. This is a really fun, family-orientated project that anyone can join in, any age, any skill set. We hope you enjoy it.
Have fun.
This is my monster. I made this monster out of scraps from my studio last night using just things I had lying around. The reason I chose monsters as a fun tutorial is because monsters are open to the imagination. You can kind of do a monster however you like. So I'm going to be showing you two different options today. I'm going to be showing you how to make a toy just doing hand sewing. And then I'm also going to show you how to do it on the sewing machine as well. And then you can choose depending on what you have available at your house or your skill level. This is my ice cream mermaid monster. I made the little eyes here out of some frozen yogurt spoons that Sarah had lying around, which is perfect for our ice cream monster mermaid. So next up, I'm going to show you all the things you need to start your project. Right? You're going to need a few pins and you're going to need a hand sewing needle. You're going to need a texter or a pencil to draw a design to make your pattern. You're going to need some stuffing to stuff the inside of your monster. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to stuff the inside of the monster, but I'll show you that a little bit later. Then you're going to need something to push the stuffing down inside the toy. So I like to use a chopstick or I like to use a paintbrush. It just has to be something that doesn't have a sharp edge so you don't pierce through your fabric. And then you can have a glue gun. The glue gun is optional and some glue sticks. And then you need some fabric. So I've got some scrap fabric I've been saving. I've got some pattern fabric. I've got some plain fabric. On this one, I used some scrap fur. I don't recommend using a very, very stretchy fabric because it's a little bit hard to hand sew and it can overstretch. But whatever you've got lying around, I've got some fleece, some silk. I've got some thick cotton, anything you like. Okay, great. And then we get to the really fun bit, the decorations of the face. And that is when you can pretty much use anything. So you can use bottle caps, you can use spoons. This is what I've used on our little ice cream monster's eyes here. I've used spoons and then I've just drawn on them with a Sharpie. You could use buttons, you could use sequins, you could use anything. Go look in your recycling bin, but we'll get to that really fun part later. Okay, so the next step you're going to do is you're going to sketch out your designs. I recommend trying a couple of sketches until you find what you like, and then you can turn it into a pattern. So I've done a few sketches. I'm going to be showing you two monsters today. I'm going to be showing you a smaller one that's hand sewn and then a larger one with multiple pieces like this one that's going to be done on the machine. So I've done a sketch of a clown cyclops octopus. And then I've done another sketch of like a bunny slug monster. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to turn these designs into a proper pattern. Okay, so first I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to turn my bunny slug design into a pattern. So today I'm just freehanding my pattern, but if you would like it to be symmetrical, when you draw your design, you can draw half, fold it over and trace out the other side. But I'm freehanding mine because I think for monsters, they don't need to be symmetrical. So first I'm going to draw my design. And now it's really important when you're making monsters that you don't want to make your limbs too thin because you're going to have to stuff them. And if you make them really thin or with really sharp angles, it's going to be really hard. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out my seam allowance. Now, I like a 1 centimetre seam allowance. You can do more if you feel more confident to do that. And you can do it two ways. You can either grab yourself a tape measure and measure out 1 and go around, or you can freehand it. Now, I feel confident to freehand mine, and I'm just going to do it like this. And then I like to write myself lots of information on my pattern so that way I cannot forget when I get to the cutting stage. So I'm going to call it Bunny Slug, and I'm going to write myself cut 2. So I know to cut 2 pieces of fabric that's sandwiched together when I get to the cutting stage. Okay, so next I'm going to be doing my 3-part pattern monster. Now this one's a little bit more complicated because I'm going to split the body parts, and I'm probably going to do this one on the sewing machine. So here it is. So this is my Cyclops octopus clown monster. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split where I'm going to make each body part. So I'm going to make the tentacles separately, then I'm going to make the head, and then I'm going to make the hat. So first I'm going to make my head. And then I'm going to make my tentacles. And then I'm going to make my hat. Now, exactly the same as the other one, I'm going to put seam allowance around them. Again, you can use the tape measure if you feel more confident, and you can also measure them out super evenly if you want everything to be symmetrical. It's completely up to you. I've done them a little bit too close together, but I'll have to do some smart cutting. Now, it's important at the bottom here to leave quite a big lip when you stuff it, so that can be attached to that, which I'll show you when we get to that part. This is why I like doing monsters, because I think they're really easy to freehand as opposed to something that has to be super symmetrical. Leaves much more. Okay, cute. I'm happy with that. And next thing, the same as last time, I'm going to cut myself. I'm going to write myself also, the reason I write on my pattern, even though it's pretty obvious, is that I might want to make this again in the future. And then if I find my pattern pieces, I'll know exactly what they mean. And then cut. Okay, so next I'm going to take my paper scissors and I'm going to cut out my patterns. So next I'm going to show you how to cut out your pattern with your fabric. So you're going to lay your fabric out nice and smooth. Now, I definitely recommend ironing your fabric. If it's crinkly, if it's a thin cotton, I don't need to iron mine because mine's a nice, quite thick, fleecy fabric. So I've laid my 2 pieces on top of each other, my scrap pieces. Now, if you've got a pattern on your fabric, make sure that they're lined up in the same direction, not on an angle, unless you would like that effect, but to make sure that it's going to be the same on both sides. So then you get your pattern, lay it on. Now I'm going to cut out my 2 pieces at the same time. If you don't feel confident to do that, you can totally cut out one at a time. I'm going to put my pins in. You You never have too many pins. You want your pattern nice and flat. I think I could have one more. Okay, and I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to start cutting it out. My fabric scissors. All right, now when I've got a really sort of deep curve like that, I like to cut off my excess fabric here, so then I've got a little bit of an easier path to cut in. I'm using really big scissors, but if you find it easier and you've got your monster happens to have some really small bits like this, you might want to get yourself a pair of smaller scissors. Okay. Now I'm going to take my pins out. Now, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to sew your monster together. So this is the little bunny slug monster, and for this monster, I'm doing a hand sewing option. So I'm going to show you two different ways you can hand sew it. On this one, I'm going to do a stitch on the outside, a decorative stitch that's going to hold the monster together, but also gives it that kind of Frankenstein-y, kind of monster-y kind of stitch. And then on this little scrap of fabric here, I'm going to show you how to do a small whip stitch on the inside. So if you were to turn your monster inside out, it'll be kind of stitch you would have on a sewing machine, an invisible stitch. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how to do a invisible whip stitch on the inside seam. So I'm just using this little scrap of fabric to show you. So I've loaded up my quite a small needle with a nice contrasting thread, so you can see a double thread. And then I'm going to do my stitches. Super small and as close together as I possibly can and as evenly as I possibly can, which is hard, but so I'm doing them really close together so we don't have any holes when we open it up. And then just to give you an example of what that looks like, if we open that up, you'll see that that's a pretty much invisible seam, just like you would have a seam on a sewing machine. And because I've done my stitches nice and small and tight, there's not any holes there. So yeah, if you were going to stitch it that way, you would stitch around your whole monster and then tie a little knot at the end. Okay, so I've pinned my pattern pieces together and now I'm going to do a decorative external stitch. So I'm going to do a whip stitch, a kind of, not a super even one because I want it to be kind of interesting and uneven for that kind of effect I'm going for. I've done 4 threads, so it's nice and tight. And I'm kind of doing mine now. 4 threads, not a little bit, so you have to just really make sure you pull it through. Now, at this point, you can kind of do whatever stitch you like, as long as it's a kind of stitch that's going to hold the fabric together and not have bits of stuffing poking out of the edges. So you can get creative. You can look up some stitches. You could do a cross stitch. There's not really a right or wrong. It just depends how you'd like your monster to look. I'm going for the kind of Frankenstein scrappy look. Now, once I've sewn all the way around this, I'm going to leave a gap to get your stuffing in. So I like to leave about, depending on the size of your toy, but I'm going to say maybe a 4 centimeter gap. Now, I like to leave my gap. I'm going to leave my gap for this one up here at the head because I think I'm going to put hair at the top. So that is a really good place to put my gap because then the hair's going to hide the stitching of when I stitch up my gap. So depending on your design, before you start stitching it together, think about where would be the best place to leave your opening for your stuffing. Okay, so I've put all my monster pieces together and I'm ready to stuff them. This one I'm very, very happy about. It's so cute. Okay, so I've got 3 different methods of stuffing today to show you. So one of them is just using wadding. Now, if you're a sewer, you've probably got wadding around, but don't buy any if you haven't already got some because you can open up an old pillow and get the wadding from inside that. If it's an old pillow, definitely give it a wash first because it might be really dusty. Also, if you have a toy in the cupboard that maybe no one wants to play with anymore or it's, you can give it a little bit of surgery, open up, get the wadding out and reuse your old toy to make a new toy, which is nice. Or you can get your fabric scraps from what we've been doing and you can just shred them up. It's time consuming, but it's a great way to use up your scraps. Just shred them up. If you're using a really stiff fabric or like anything kind of plasticky or hard, I don't recommend using that to make the scraps because it'll be really lumpy, but this is great. This soft, fleecy fabric. So that's that. Or if you're like me and you do a lot of overlocking, you can totally keep all your scraps. So in our studio, we like to keep big bags of this stuff. We keep bags under the sewing machine, and as we're sewing, we collect all of our scraps so then we can use it for stuffing. And it's a really, really, really great way to use up your scraps, save money, sustainable, all that. So now I'm going to stuff them. Okay, so now I'm going to stuff my little bunny slug monster. I'm going to use the overlocking scraps. So, get something like that. This stuff's very stringy. Look at all the good colours. So, first I just kind of pop it in with my hands, like this. Shake it down to the bottom. This is the fun job. Then I get my paintbrush or chopstick or spoon, whatever you're using, and then you can kind of push it down and also distribute it out to the sides like that. Just be really careful not to push too hard so you don't pierce a hole if you're using really delicate fabric as well. And then just keep stuffing it until you get your little monster to the size you want. If it's looking a bit lumpy, you can kind of just massage the stuffing down like that. The fabric does tend to be a little bit lumpier than wadding, so you just have to really push it into place. But I also kind of like that look for a monster because, a monster would have lumpy skin. Okay. So I need a little bit more. Gonna shred up some fabric. Ooh, I need just a tiny bit more, so it's going to have a little bit of wadding too. It's good. It's got all 3 types of things in it. Now, when you've got smaller bits like this, it's really important to make sure that you fill them really tight so then they don't flop. Make sure you push everything down. You don't want to have any gaps in your stuffing. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll see kind of like where it will have creases in it. But it's pretty easy to tell just by looking at it where there's a hole. So I can look at it and say, oh, okay, it's not really stuffed enough there. And then I can get my paintbrush down and stuff it. All right, so I feel like I'm pretty happy with that. A little bit lumpy, which I kind of like. And now the next stage is to show you how to stitch up this, and then we're ready to decorate. Okay, so now I've cut out all my pieces for my tentacle cyclops clown monster. This monster, I'm going to show you how to sew it on the sewing machine. So I've cut out all my pieces. I've made sure when I cut them out that I've pinned right sides together. So when I sew it up and turn it the right way, that will have the right pattern on the outside. So I'm going to grab the sewing machine and show you how to sew it. Okay, so now I'm stitching together my tentacle cyclops monster. I'm remembering to follow my 1 centimetre seam allowance. If you feel like you need to mark that on your fabric, you can, whatever you need to do. And I'm also sewing it on a medium stitch length. This is being sped up, isn't it? Okay, so I've sewn all my pieces together and now I'm going to clip the corners. And this is very important, particularly when you're doing things that have a curve in them. So it smooths the seam out nicely and you're able to turn it inside out. So you want to just go around maybe like 1 centimetre apart and clip your edging. Now, be very careful not to cut your seam. Now, particularly with a seam like this, where this one comes up with a really strong curve, I like to even clip quite a lot, like really just give that quite a few little clips right there in that edge. And then go around and clip your seams. And now we're nearly ready to turn it inside out. It's exciting. And we'll just do this little guy, its little hat. I think this is probably going to need some sort of miniature pom-pom on it. Okay, so, little pin. Now, I'm going to turn the head inside out. So I've got my paintbrush, nice smooth edge, and just want to turn it inside out. Use your fingers. Sometimes you won't necessarily need the paintbrush, depends. But sometimes it's nice to get in there with something like this and just poke your seams. Now don't poke too hard so you don't push a hole through it, particularly with your hand stitch one. Go super gentle because you don't want to accidentally burst the seam. And then, now, if you're being very particular, again, and you have the sort of fabric that this might be necessary for, you might want to give it an iron again. But I'm not going to iron mine because I'm happy. And so there's my head. So now I'm going to turn all of this inside out and show you the next step. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to put the 3-part monster together, which is our Cyclops octopus one. So this is a little bit different. This is a little bit more complicated. So what you want to do is get your first piece. You know, you need quite a few pins for this one. And now this is the head. a little bit lumpy. I kind of like it though. And then what you're going to do is you're going to essentially put it together like body parts. So we're going to insert the head over the top of the tentacles like that. So this would be the same if you had legs or if you had a tail. And then what I'm doing is I'm folding that under and I'm just popping a little pin in. This is a blunt pin. And then like this. Now this is a little bit tricky because you've got to make sure that you sort of tuck the fabric down enough and sit it on there that it's staying upright. Now, if you feel like I'm pretty happy with that, before you pin it all up and you feel like it needs a little bit more stuffing in there to hold it, you can always grab a few more little scraps and push it in there just to make sure. And then pop my pin in. Okay, so there's the head inserted. And now, same technique with the hat. So I think I'm going to have the hat kind of off to the side. So yeah, so I'm going to do the same technique. I'm going to kind of fit it on. So we're making it circular, essentially. Same deal. I'm going to fold it under like, I don't know, a centimetre, half a centimetre, like this. And pin it on. This bit's a little tricky, so just go slow. And we're almost ready to do the fun bit, the eyes and the hair and the teeth, whatever you like. Okay, so now I've pinned all mine together. It's so cute. So it's the beginning. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand sew this. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so here's my bunny slug, and I have basically finished this off by pretty much continuing this decorative stitch all the way around and closing up that gap after I stuffed it. So that's how to finish that one, nice and easy. Now this one is a little bit trickier. So I've loaded up my thread, nice matching colour. And I've folded it under, and I'm going to just do a very small invisible stitch. Now, if you don't know what an invisible stitch is, there are heaps of great tutorials or books. If you're someone who has lots of craft books lying around, you can also do another type of stitch if you want it to be visible. As long as it holds it on. I'm doing an invisible stitch because I would like mine not to be visible. You can also do a small whip stitch like we were doing before if you know that you're going to cover the neck with something. As long as it's really secure and a small stitch, so that way our limbs don't fall apart. That's the most important thing. Now, as you're stitching it, and take out your pins. If you feel like you're stitching it and you can see that it needs a little bit more stuffing, which often happens when you're doing thinner limbs like this, just ever so gently, you can start just stuffing teeny little bits in there as you go along, just to get it. Great. So there, I'm going to stitch all the way around there. Then I'm going to stitch all the way around my hat, and then I'm ready to decorate. Okay, so we're up to the fun part, decorating. So I'm going to be decorating my little Cyclops octopus toy, and Sarah's here, and she's going to be helping. She's going to be decorating the bunny slug.
Bunny slug.
So what are you going to use?
Well, I've dug into my box of recycled materials that I collect.
So it's pretty epic.
Found these old rubber gloves that were going to be thrown away, which I think are super sluggy and wobbly.
And they're a good colour too.
So I'm going for a yellow and orange theme. Surprise, surprise. I found these recycled like orange juice caps, which will make cool eyes. So that'll be cool.
Cute.
And
I love.
I'm very excited. I've got some old plastic forks that I've cut the end off to make
it's fangs!
some fangs.
I love it.
For that real zombie apocalypse bunny slug. And then I've got our classic technique, which is getting some lycra and cutting into long strips and then stretching it out to make these like the slug trail bits.
Yes.
Because it needs its trailer
I
bits.
love.
Yeah.
Great.
What are you going to do?
Well, this little friend's definitely got a clown vibe going on. So I found this scrap of green fur from, I think, when you made a jacket a while back. Yeah. So I'm going to make that. It's like the perfect little tuft of hair. And then I've got a couple of different just plastic spoons, takeaway spoons for the eye. I haven't decided on the size yet.
That one's cute.
It is very cute. And then I've got kind of some gold things. I was thinking about incorporating gold, maybe making like a cute little gold bow tie. And then there's this old gold doily thing. It's going to maybe cut little bits of that out and do little like decorations. And then I found a random packet of gold sequins in my craft stuff, which I thought would be cute to like do like little suckers.
Yeah, needs little suckers. I like this circusy colour palette as well. It's cute.
Circus octopus cyclops clown.
Excellent.
Cute.
Okay,
all right,
let's get to work.
Oh, and I'm also using the hot glue gun for this. I'm going to use the hot glue gun, and you're just going to do...
I'm going to carry on with the hand sewing decorations.
So there's options.
Bunny slug.
You don't have a hot glue gun, you can just do hand sewing. Great. You just say great. Yay, so we've finished our monsters. They're so cute. It was really fun, and it was really fun to find different things lying around the house that totally determined what their little eyes and bits and pieces look like. The gloves here to make the slug trail. Very good last minute addition. Yay, so we can't wait to see what you make, and we're going to have a monster party. Bye.
Can't wait to see you back at Craft Club. I love sewing.